Now, ballot counting is currently underway in South Africa following a historic election that could potentially end the African National Congress' 30-year unchallenged majority. Voters queued long into the night on Wednesday, with some polling stations remaining open well past the planned 9 p.m. closure due to the high turnout and last-minute rush, particularly in urban areas. Counting commenced immediately after polls closed, and while the final results are not expected before the weekend, analysts are already examining turnout figures and partial results to gauge whether the ruling ANC will lose its overall parliamentary majority for the first time since coming to power in 1994. Political analysts say if President Cyril Ramaphosa's party falls below the crucial 50% mark, he will need to seek coalition partners to be re-elected by Parliament and form a new government. Now, to talk more on this, I am joined by political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng in South Africa. Asanda, you're welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good morning. Now, tell us what the initial reactions from voters and political analysts about the high turnout and long queues at the polling stations are saying.
Well, a number of people were surprised that there were so many people who went out to vote. But, it's not surprising because South Africans have been calling for change, some saying they want the African National Congress out, while others have been saying they want the Democratic Alliance out, which is in the Western Cape, and they wanted it out because it supported Israel, while the majority of South Africa supported Palestine because of our apartheid history.
Okay, so does this high turnout point to the fact that most South Africans are perhaps maybe disenfranchised or just tired of the ruling ANC party currently? What does this say exactly for the South African political scene currently?
Well, I see it as more than just the ANC, but rather that people are tired of the incumbent and, those who have been in power across the board. That's why I mentioned both the ANC and the Democratic Alliance. And I think that, people have seen widespread corruption. They have seen, the high unemployment rate that South Africa has, including people who have degrees. And these are the things that have pushed especially young people to go out and vote in larger numbers than we've seen since about 1994.
Okay, we've seen plenty of international observers there in South Africa, including our very own former president here in Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan. But what measures are being taken to ensure the transparency and accuracy of the vote counting process, given the extended polling hours?
Well, South Africa has a system that we've been following since 1994, which is that votes, each voting station has party agents whose role is to make sure that, there isn't any vote rigging by any political party. And then we also have electoral observers, both national, regional, and international, at each polling station. And so at any given point, it's not only IEC people who are doing the counting, but you've got party agents who are also there to make sure that the counting is done correctly and that what is actually displayed as a final tally is the true reflection of what the people actually voted for.
So initial indicators are showing that the ANC might lose up to 50% of its mark. This is only just speculation, but which parties are likely to become coalition partners should this happen?
Well, I think it's a little bit early to tell because we're sitting only at 13% at the moment, and the ANC is still, well above 40%. And also another factor to consider is the fact that what we've been seeing is mainly Western Cape and Northern Cape votes, which are strongholds of the Democratic Alliance. And so it's kind of skewed as things stand. And we'll know more once we start kind of seeing election results across the rest of the country. In terms of a potential coalition, I think that the ANC might end up in a coalition with the EFF and, the MK, if indeed it does end up getting less than 50% in the final tally. One of the biggest issues is that, the opposition parties up until now, when we saw the high turnout, have been unable to get South Africans to take that anger and channel it towards a vote against the ANC rather than either continuing to vote for the same ANC or staying at home. And so it's going to be interesting to see how many of the people who got up to vote were doing it to remove the ANC or potentially to remove the DA in the Western Cape, and how many of them were doing it to actually make sure that the ANC retains power. Because what we saw is that the entry of former President Jacob Zuma with the MK also has revived some people's interest in going to defend the ANC, and there is also potential that the MK itself, which is run by the former president of the ANC, Jacob Zuma, might actually end up cancelling out the IFP, which is a political party that was popular in KZN and in fact was the third largest political party in 1994, mainly in KZN.
Well, thank you very much then, Asanda Ngoasheng, there in Cape Town, South Africa, for joining us here this morning on our news. Thank you very much.
Thank you.